All right, so I just got back from watching Mercy, the latest movie that's one of those screen movies that got a lot of unwanted popularity last year with the release of Amazon Prime's War of the Worlds, which is one of the worst movies that a lot of people have ever seen. I haven't watched it, but I've seen plenty of YouTube reviews of that movie, so I've basically watched it, and yeah, it's pretty bad. But essentially, what it is, it's one of these movies where you kind of see it through a screen camera, where you're watching someone work on a computer, and instead of seeing them, you're seeing camera recordings of people, and you're seeing people work on screens and type out emails and that sort of stuff. War of the Worlds isn't the first one to do this. This has been done many times before. In fact, I believe a couple years ago, the one called Searching is actually quite well regarded. So they're not all bad. But anyway, this new one, Mercy, definitely has the biggest budget out of all these movies and also the most star power with Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson in the lead roles. Chris Pratt plays a police officer who supports this AI judge, jury, and executioner system called Mercy. That is until he unexpectedly becomes one of the people suspected to be guilty of murdering his own wife, and he is placed within the Mercy system, and he only has an hour and a half to prove his own innocence before he is executed by this AI. So, played by Rebecca Ferguson. So, if that sounds a lot like Minority Report to you, it is. You know, this high tech, fanciful judge jury execution system supported by a law enforcement officer until that exact law enforcement officer becomes, the target of that system. And then we start to realize that the system may not be as foolproof as we once thought. This is very similar to that. So you're going to enjoy this movie or not enjoy this movie depending on what you value out of your entertainment. If you're the type of person who hates movies, especially these detective style movies that lean heavy into cliche, it's a little cheesy. There's a lot of coincidence going on here, like, oh, of course he notices that, or oh, of course they leave that lying around, or how on earth is he able to put two and two together like that? If those things really bother you and hamper your enjoyment of movies, then you're probably not going to like Mercy all that much. There's a lot of that in here. But if that doesn't bother you that much and you can enjoy a movie for its story and you can be entertained by performances and overall vibes and just kind of the novelty of seeing a movie presented this way, where it's mostly watching someone on screen, but yet, through clever editing and stuff, they keep things exciting. If that matters more to you than, plot holes and stuff like that, then you probably will enjoy this a decent amount. I am kind of in the middle. I like this movie on paper and I wish it was better because the things that I really like, but there's just too much of the other stuff, too much of the coincidence and the plot holes and the cliche stuff that keeps me from saying that I actually like it. But I like a lot of stuff this movie has going on, and I wish it was in a better movie. The main thing that I connected to the most, surprisingly, which I did not think would happen, and I think this just is a testament to the performances, is the relationship that evolves between Chris Pratt's character and Rebecca Ferguson's character of the Mercy AI. Chris Pratt does a great job of playing a desperate, man who's on the edge. He does a good job of that, but I really want to give props to Rebecca Ferguson. It's just her facial expressions. She can just convey things without speaking, without moving her mouth at all. It's just in the way she moves her eyebrows, or I don't know how she does it, but it's just so captivating. Where you're like, what is she thinking about? Even though this is a computer, this is an AI, it's not supposed to be, thinking human thoughts or emotions. But she does a really good job with a role that could have been just kind of nothing. But her performance elevates that role quite a bit. So that's the part of the movie that I really liked, and I liked the two characters, the desperate condemned, accused cop and the AI, you know, working together but kind of not working together, having an adversarial relationship that evolves throughout the entire movie. I liked seeing that. That was definitely my favorite part. But everything else around it, the overall mystery, isn't really that surprising. There's a couple twists and turns in there that, even if you don't see coming, they are pretty obvious when they happen, so they're not super duper shocking when things are revealed. And like I said, the actual detective work in this movie is very much like, oh, how on earth were you able to figure that out? There's no way that would have worked in real life. So all that stuff kind of brought it down for me, and I wish, like I said earlier, the relationship between human and AI was in a better movie than this. I feel like this movie has a lot of potential that kind of lets itself down. It also tries to pivot from a detective movie to an action movie for the last 20 minutes or so. But because we're watching this all through, drone cameras and police body cams and, helicopter cameras and stuff like that, it's not as thrilling as the movie's trying to make it out to be, as a traditional action movie would be. You don't really feel like you're there, because you're supposed to feel like you're there with Chris Pratt sitting in a chair. So, when it tries to be an action movie, it doesn't really succeed in that. So I wouldn't really recommend this to watch in the theater, to pay those extra bucks for it, unless you can see it for cheap on like a Tuesday or something like that and you got nothing better to do. It's decent, unless, you're really bothered by plot holes and stuff like that. But I do think if you have nothing else going on and you want to watch a streaming movie when this is inevitably on Amazon Prime or something like that, if you could watch it for free, I think it's worth checking out. Again, unless you are really bothered by plot holes and cliches and that stops you from liking a movie, then don't watch it. You're not going to enjoy it. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Mercy.